My name is Melanie Ramjee. In the social media world, I'm known as Hyperist because apparently I bring the hype to brands. PR is a strategic form of communication that builds a brand and delivers a positive message to the target audience. It's pretty much taking a message from a brand to the public. Well, there's different fields in the public relations space. There's the publicist who sends out a press release, who generates interviews, who maintains the image of a brand. There's also a social media manager, which also falls under public relations. And that's a person who obviously manages social media. There's a copywriter who comes up with all the copy that gets sent out. There's also a strategic PR person who comes up with the strategy. So you can either be one or you can be all. Public relations officer operates in the marketing space or the advertising space. Public relations is advertising your brand without necessarily having to pay for it. PR plays in every single space, whether it's entertainment, lifestyle, sport. We pretty much play in every field. The different types of PR is either corporate or consumer PR. Corporate for me is pretty much where you make the big cash. I like to play in the consumer space, it encompasses entertainment, sport, anything lifestyle based. You can either study to be a publicist or be in the PR space, or you can fall into that space, which is pretty much what happened to me. I went to study fashion design and I fell into a PR space. I obviously do promote that you study it, so you get the foundation of the career choice you've made. You study public relations, whatever field of PR that you wanted to. So if you want to be a copywriter, if you want to be a marketer, so there's so many different facets of public relations. There's so many different choices of subjects and stuff to study in tertiary to get to where you want to be. I definitely think one of the biggest skills is to be a people person. So if you're not out there in the space meeting people, being friendly with journalists and different brands that you might one day represent, that for me is always key. You have to be a people person. It's great to be a good writer, whether you're either going to write your own copy or your own press releases, or you're going to just read through them and edit them and know how to write and know how writing has to be structured. Outside of that, it's just like any other job. You need to be tenacious, you need to be hardworking and all those other things. But the skills, good writer, people person. I think PR is like any other job. It's either a win-win for you or not. I think if you have the necessary skill, it is easier to get into the field versus easy. But I think in the time we live in and how things are right now, it's kind of difficult to just get a job in general, employment in this country. I think much like any job, you can make a lot of money. I think I've made a substantial living out of it. It took me a while to get to where I am right now, so I didn't suddenly, cash that check. I started out where I was doing it pro bono. I still do a lot of pro bono work, but it's like any other job. The work you put in is what you'll get out. But to answer your question, you can make a lot of money out of PR. I mean, imagine Beyonce's publicist. You can make a lot of money out of it. I think that the field I play in is so fickle and honestly so fake and plastic and pretentious that I definitely need balance. So I don't think it's a choice that I have to do pro bono. It's a need, it's not a want. I work with a lot of charities and NGOs. I really talk about it out there, outside of actually just getting general PR for us and getting the word out there. But it balances me. It's the one thing that keeps me normal, outside of my family and real life. But doing stuff and giving back for nothing in return and no thank you and not getting 1 rand in return, it kind of balances you out from when you do get the big checks and you have to go and smile and pretend that you're so happy and you're in your best space, but you're really not. I think it gives me balance. Get yourself out there, PR yourself, go out to events, put yourself out there, get interviews for yourself. Exactly the same thing you're doing for your clients, you need to do for yourself. Obviously your clients are first, but also put yourself out there, do interviews, just be out there. Outside of that, social media, if you're going to be telling your clients to update their social media, make sure you're on it, make sure you're on every platform, make sure you're active. I'm not saying post, slay queen pictures, but just be active and be there, be on every social media, have a presence, know what's going on, and then just study your craft, research your craft, make sure you're the head of your game, you always know what's going on. So research as well, and that's what keeps you ahead of the game and putting yourself out there. Each industry has their different pros and cons. I decided to do consumer PR because it's something I love. Corporate is definitely a go-to just because it's stable, it's easier to maintain. I mean, doing PR for an artist has its ups and downs as well. So I love it because it's something I feel, and I'm passionate about working with artists and festivals and entertainment in general. But corporate is a little bit more easier. Needless to say, it could blow up and have negative PR around it. The brand has tweeted a racist comment or politically incorrect comment, but it's just safer. So if you want to go the safer route and you want to get the more money type of PR job, corporate's always the easier option, in my opinion. I think the biggest one is it's glamorous, it's fabulous. You get to hang out with Ricky Rick and Casper, and it's definitely not the truth. There's a lot of hours that go into it. I think that for me creates my guts the most because it's not glamorous. It does have its key points if that's what you're looking for, but a lot of work goes into PR. It's not all fun and games because you could be here today and gone tomorrow, and then it's not as glamorous as you think. I think it's about always, as any industry or any field of career choice, reinventing yourself, keeping ahead of the game. I spoke earlier about researching your career. Pretty much that's what's kept me in the game for long, and that format worked for me. So hopefully it works for other young people. You know what, there's always going to be somebody younger than you and better than you and cheaper than you. So I think one of the biggest challenges I face is that a lot of young and upcoming publicists get the PR job, and I also learned at some point, but they don't deliver the work, and then the client comes running back to you. But now they've wasted this little budget that they weren't trying to pay the bigger budget. And I think that's one of the challenges I face, is that a lot of clients today want the cheaper option out. And it's great because I was there at some point, so I also had to learn along the way, but that's definitely challenging. I think right now with the time we're living in, obviously COVID-19 is a big problem. That's a huge challenge. How are we going to, create a new norm? What really is the way forward for entertainment? How are we going to have concerts? That's challenging, not just for promoters, but for everybody, including the artist, the media person, us, the publicists, the marketers, the brands. It affects everybody. So right now that's probably the most top of mind challenge right now in PR. I always go back to where I started. I didn't study PR, and I always tell somebody who wants to get into PR, it would be great to start off actually studying it. I think it took me 15 years to get to where I was 15 years ago because I hadn't studied it. So it took me so much longer, over a decade, to learn the fundamentals that I could have actually learned, in tertiary. So I always encourage young people who want to get in this career to study. Secondly, be real about what your skills are. If you know you're not a people person, you don't like to go out, you can't write great, consider all, your skill sets and decide, is this something I really want to push myself into? I really don't like going out. I don't want to be on social media. Then maybe it's not the right career choice to you because it's not that glamorous. So for me, it's always about studying it, knowing your craft, excelling in your craft, but also being a realist of what your skills are.